Was Meghan Markle's sole goal Hollywood when she married into the British royal family? That's kind of the impression you get from reading Tom Bower's book. And I'm going into my part 3 of 4 about kind of reviewing kind of in detail what he shares. And in this section, I initially thought I was going to focus on kind of Meghan's control issues, because that came up a lot, that she's very, very controlling. She wants to control every little aspect of our image. But as reading through it again and like pulling things through, what really came across to me is that this whole marrying into the British royalty, British monarchy, was all for Meghan about making money and also living the most extravagant, luxurious life possible. And ironically, if that's what you want to do, hey, that's fine. But actually, I would recommend most people do not marry into royalty, because it's less lucrative than you actually think. And I think this is a trouble Meghan ran into. And in addition to her delusion that she is the next Diana, led her and Harry to abandoning the British monarchy and embarking on Megxit, which I think so far in many ways has been kind of an epic disaster for them. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany, and I talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. I do it all right here. So if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And like I said, today, part 3. So this will go in from kind of Harry and Meghan's wedding all the way up to Megxit. And I don't want to spend too much time on obviously all the celebrities who were at Meghan's wedding, because that's been done many, many times. And I'm just trying to pull out bits and pieces that maybe not everybody has heard about, because there's been a lot of people leaking different things, but also just kind of sharing with you some insights maybe that you don't know. And so as I was going through this, kind of one of the first things that struck me is obviously, yes, there were a ton of celebrities at Harry and Meghan's wedding, most of whom they had never met or had met once. Meghan Markle had had like one brief conversation with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey had gone on to meet Doria and in California. So there was really very much this kind of sense from Meghan that, you know, she was focused on Hollywood. Everybody was like, why are all these celebrities here? Because it's like, yes, there are some celebrities that do come to royal weddings, but seemed overly focused on celebrity. And in particular, you know, somebody like George Clooney. And this also feeds into Meghan's delusion that she is the next Diana, because George Clooney very much came out and spoke against what happened to Princess Diana when she died in 1997. And, you know, he equates Meghan to Diana several times on Meghan and Harry's urging. But kind of one of the first things that stuck out to me when I was kind of going through this again and trying to organize it is this little bit about the fireworks display. Obviously, at their wedding, Harry and Meghan went kind of above and beyond. And apparently, Charles maybe had a bit of sticker shock when it came to the bill. So Bower says, Charles danced with his sons and waited for the fireworks. Impressed by the display, Charles asked Harry who paid. You, Pa, replied his son. Charles left the party early, uncertain how much of the £32 million bill was down to him. Regardless of this latest burden, he had hosted a memorable celebration on the day. And the picture I chose here is kind of a famous one that Harry and Meghan released for their first Christmas card. And they were kind of criticized for this because obviously Harry and Meghan have very much gone with the black and white look. That is kind of their signature thing that they attempt to do. But it was also them turning their backs to the British public in a way, going kind of, you know, kind of F you. Because they really wanted to do things their way, but not in a good way. They wanted to say, shuck the tradition, we don't care, we're going to do things our way. And that seemed to be kind of the emphasis. And if you look at this as well, you know, Charles, a £32 million bill, that's a lot. And the Duchy of Cornwall, here's the little thing that most people don't know about royals, is they're not as rich as you think. They're really not. The exceptions are some of the Asian royal families, particularly Thailand, obviously the Middle Eastern royal families as well, with the exception of Jordan. And then in the Europe, you have like Monaco has a lot of cash. A couple of the German principalities still have, you know, those princes. I'm thinking of Thun, and I can't remember how to pronounce it, but anyways, they do still have quite a lot of money. And the Dutch have a decent amount of money because they are investors in Dutch oil, basically. But most of them actually are not flush with cash. You know, Spain especially, the queen lives on a pretty significant budget. And I don't think she would be real extravagant anyways, but because of the scandals in the Spanish royal family, she's had to very much live on a bare bones budget to a certain extent when it comes to her clothes. So she will very much buy things that are, you know, just kind of, you know, $100, dresses that are $100, you know, or less. She rarely goes walking around in something that's $15, $16, you know, $2,000. She rarely does that. Whereas Meghan did that pretty much from the get-go. Because again, I think Meghan had this idea in her mind that she was going to live like Grace Kelly, or, you know, basically like a billionaireess. Well, honey, if you want to live like a billionaireess, you need to marry a billionaire. You don't marry royalty. And a huge portion of also of her attraction to who she invited to the wedding, especially Oprah Winfrey, is the possibility of an interview somewhere down the line. Again, Meghan, her sole goal in life, and the one that she couldn't even give up when she married into a family, into an institution that is far, far more famous than Hollywood, is that, and more influential, powerful, you know, majestic, a lot more exclusive as well, is that Meghan, again, her sole goal and focus was Hollywood. That is all she has ever cared about, is somebody giving a crap that Meghan Markle is someone in Hollywood. So this says, during those first days of the afterglow, Meghan maintained her control of events. Just as the wedding guest list remained undisclosed, the couple's honeymoon destination was a guarded secret. If Meghan can't handle life in the royal fishbowl, suggested one observer, unaware of the growing tensions in the palace, no one can. Unseen, Oprah Winfrey was texting Meghan. Thrilled to be acknowledged by Californian royalty, Meghan was delighted that Oprah had visited Doria. Her only misgivings were directed at those within Kensington Palace, her staff, and the Cambridges. None realized that she remained in constant contact with all of her advisors in California, the entertainment lawyer, her business manager, and her publicist. And, you know, this is, again, very, very concerning in the first days because, you know, if you marry into royalty, yes, there is an adjustment period. I mean, even if she is in her late 30s, it's still going to take you a bit to understand the system. And it's not, you know, something that's totally necessary and easy. Grace Kelly had a really hard time, especially giving up her career. And she actually had to learn a foreign language, French. And Meghan, you know, again, is looking, she marries in immediately and is already looking for her way out. Now, if Harry and Meghan, for example, had decided, you know what, the royalty thing, the working royal thing isn't really for us, that is totally fine. I have no issue with that. But if she's already looking for an out, this means that she was really focusing on both monetizing the monarchy and getting out as quickly as possible so she can make all the money that she wants to. Her sole focus is money. Harry was madly in love, and she was madly in love with the money she thought he had. And I think another thing that fueled Meghan was her immense jealousy of Catherine. Catherine will have access to one of the most extensive, gorgeous, and priceless jewelry collections in the entire world. The British royals own the largest diamond in the entire world. Actually, it's kind of owned by the trust, so it's not, you know, technically personally owned by the monarch, the imperial state crown, the imperial scepter, that remains in trust. But, you know, Catherine will get to perhaps see some of those pieces up close. She will get to wear what's called grandma's chips, which are the Cullinan 3 and 4, so the lesser stars of Africa, probably as a brooch someday. They're massive, massive diamonds that the Queen wears. And they were called Granny's chips because the Queen Mary, who is the Queen Elizabeth's grandmother, she used to wear them as a brooch. Queen Mary, I mean, golly, the woman had impeccable taste in jewelry. She really did. She really is the reason that the British monarchy has a great of jewelry collection as it does, because Queen Elizabeth is not known for her great taste in jewelry and tiaras. She's really, really not. So, but this says, and I thought this was super interesting, just talking about how Meghan's inferiority complex and superiority complex and her immense jealousy of Catherine. This says, Meghan fumed about her impotence. Each rant from Thomas. Oh, and I forgot to mention as well, is that Meghan, one of the things that kind of really, you know, kind of set Meghan off immediately on a wrong foot with the monarchy, the British public, kind of everyone, is the disaster with her family. That she didn't invite them. She didn't figure out how to muzzle them so that they wouldn't talk so much. So I understand that Meghan, in her mind, she is embarrassed of her family and she doesn't want them to speak out. hey, that's her right. That happens. People feel that way. That's fine. However, she did nothing to mitigate them. And I think part of it was her arrogance in thinking that she was going to be so powerful that she did not have to basically rely on them, that she could just basically dismiss them, ignore them, and they would go away. But they weren't going away. And I think that was an immensely stupid decision on Meghan's part to not just go, okay, let me pay them off, do something. Again, it was all about money. I think she didn't want to pay them, but she could have had them sign an NDA and given them $50,000 and they probably would have shut up. That is part of it. I think part of it, again, is a combination of the hurt of what some of Meghan said and kind of the implication. I'm still not sure she even really wanted her father at the wedding, although he was on the program apparently. So was surprised that he wasn't there, but I'm just not even sure she was that invested in having him there, really. I think it did work to her advantage for him not to appear, or she really just wanted him to fly in for the ceremony and get on the next flight out. After he walked her down the aisle, sat there for a minute, I was like, okay, Dad, let's get you on the first flight to Heathrow. Because again, I've said this before, I think part of Meghan's desire to keep her father from Harry really is because she was worried that he would tell Harry things about her childhood that Meghan had either lied about, misled Harry about, didn't tell him about, that she had created and crafted this different narrative of her childhood that she didn't want Harry to know. But anyways, back to this quote. Meghan fumed about her impotence. Every rant from Thomas and Samantha dented her popularity. The previous day, photographers had noted the accuracy of Thomas's description. In a staged photo opportunity to rebut the truth, Meghan and Kate had appeared for the first time together at Wimbledon for the ladies' final. Meghan's smile looked more forced than usual. The physical comparison was unflattering to Meghan. On her own, Meghan's radiance won universal applause, but besides the taller, authoritative future queen, the Duchess appeared diminished. Neither could conceal their mutual discomfort. Insiders drew a parallel with the relations between Harry and William. Days earlier, at the celebration of the RAF's 100th anniversary, the brothers had looked uncomfortable together. Looking at Catherine and Meghan at Wimbledon, the differences are striking. Meghan looked messy, like she did most of her time as a royal. Like she had the messy bun thing. She wore an oversized button-up shirt, which did nothing for her. Her pants were too long. Like her whole outfit looked sloppy. Whereas Catherine, you may not like everything Catherine wears, and I don't like everything Catherine wears. I'm totally honest about that. But Catherine always looks impeccable. Regardless of, I hate Alessandra Reich stuff for the vast majority of it that Catherine's liked wearing recently. I do like the shoes she wore at Wimbledon recently. I did like those two-tone shoes. But Alessandra Reich, the 80s knockoff, I cannot stand it. But Catherine always looks impeccable. So you can disagree with the fashion, but Catherine always looks great. And she also has, at that point especially too, she liked that some of the focus was on Meghan. So Catherine was starting to blossom. She had her 3 children. She knew that was all her and William were going to have. So she's kind of done having kids. So she's settling very much. And so she is starting to become this very regal figure. And Meghan, by comparison, at that event just did not even look the part. She looked messy. She looked disheveled. Some people said that she looked basically like the people at Wimbledon who were catching the balls, and like the young ball people or something. They go around and the foul balls and stuff they grab. And so Meghan kind of looked like that. And so it's like, okay, so Meghan, you kind of have yourself to blame there. But I think Meghan, again, is starting to realize, perhaps, and I've explained this before in other videos, but if you're new, I will explain it again. So royalty is very much like a solar system. The crown is the star, is the sun, and all the planets are rotating around it. You can think of them as different royals, and the higher up royal you are, so like the queen is Mercury, the closer to the sun you are. Harry and Meghan, when Catherine's there, Catherine is closer to the sun. Therefore, she shines more brightly than Meghan does. And Meghan's starting to realize, oh wait, I'm exciting and authoritative and everything and all these things on my own, but there's somebody more powerful there. And I don't think Meghan could stand that because, again, her sole focus in life has being a Hollywood star. it's a very shallow goal because she didn't really work on being a great actress to achieve that. So she social climbed and she worked through people to kind of get from point C person to point B person to point B person to point A person to get herself ahead rather than actually becoming a fabulous actress who could have been actually met Harry as, you know, at her maybe Academy Award potential film, meeting him because he's there, and that's how the relationship sparks. No, she finds somebody who can introduce her to somebody who can introduce her to him, and you know, he fell for it, and that's you know, something he has to live with. But you know, she didn't really try to work at anything and being better as an actress. And Meghan also was obsessed with the media. She was very, very focused on how the media could help her because, again, she wants this Hollywood treatment, but royals are not like Hollywood. You will be criticized as a royal if you do something inappropriate because you are getting money from the taxpayer, ergo you are answerable to the taxpayers. It says, in securing Brian Gordon's support, Meghan had misunderstood the media. Her persuasive influence on one journalist's favorable portrayal of herself was an incentive for others to highlight the negative stories. Their search for harmful snippets started after an official visit by Meghan and Harry to Dublin. In a private conversation, Meghan told an Irish politician that she supported abortion. The politician posted the conversation on social media. Meghan was instantly criticized for expressing a political opinion. During the 24-hour trip, the media delighted in reporting that she wore 4 outfits worth £28,000, mostly from Givenchy. A quick survey of her last 15 outings showed that she had worn clothes by Dior, Givenchy, Prada, and Chanel, and never the same one twice. She was unfavorably compared to Kate, whose annual expenditure on clothes was around $100,000. So Meghan again was running into this comparison to Kate, and she was also running into overspending, and she was starting to show very much this indulgence in the wealth that she thought she had. She was spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on clothes and probably dipping into Harry's money to do that because she could not, or, you know, there may have been some freebies. Tom Bowers talks about how apparently somebody from her staff allegedly reached out to all the major French fashion houses basically and asked for free stuff, which she's not supposed to do. So royals, I did mention this in my royal fashion video, kind of the do's and don'ts, but I'll mention this here. Royals do not take freebies. So they buy everything. Yes, there is relationships, so they probably get a discount on some things, but generally they are supposed to buy direct, full price items. So again, it doesn't delve into that realm of freebies, which can be kind of dangerous. Meghan immediately went there because that's how Hollywood does it. And Meghan is all about Hollywood, 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 and money, money, money. Knaft, so this is Jason Knaft, who kind of also exposed Harry and Meghan in the court case, kind of exposing all of Meghan's lies regarding her case against the Daily Mail. She still won the case on a technicality, but I don't think her award, her winnings were actually ended up being all that good. She at least had to, the Daily Mail, I think, had to give like £1 to something. So she really kind of got screwed there. And I think in part because the law was written in a way where she was going to win. However, she was kind of exposed as a liar a bit in the process because she said she had lost all these text messages, and Jason Knaft goes, I have all the text messages right here. There's not a 30-day delete like you're saying. So it says Jason Knaft did not notice that whenever Meghan believed a fact, in her mind she decided what she believed was true, and there was no possibility of contradiction. Contradiction of her truth was persecution. As she would say, when you really know who you are and you know what your belief system is and you live by the truth, I think you can start to peel away the layers of where the fear comes from. Meghan's attitude towards truth was common among Hollywood celebrities. In their new religion, the concept of a universal truth was false. As she told an audience, life is about storytelling, about the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we're told, what we buy into. She sincerely believed that everyone had the right to create our own truth about the world. So guys, I hate this. It's my truth. I just hate that stuff. There is something called objective truth. If there's nothing if there's no objective truth, life can kind of not exist, because you have to have a truth, a baseline truth to base everything around. Now, when it comes to something like a crime, yes, everybody sees something perhaps a little differently, but generally the consensus should be somewhat similar. However, this idea of creating your own truth is dangerous, because you can delude yourself. You can start to believe a lie. And, we know about what happened later with Harry and Meghan and their accusation against the monarchy. What if it was a perfectly innocent comment, just wondering, what a child between them would look like? And because it's their truth and they can create whatever they want, over time that metamorphosized into this hugely racist allegation. And again, as well, every criticism Meghan interpreted as persecution. Kate was criticized a lot, especially in the beginning, for being work shy, seeming uninterested at times. Like, it took Kate a while to really blossom as a royal. And I'm speaking as someone who actually was not a huge fan of Kate for years. I've changed my mind in part because she has truly, truly blossomed as a royal. And so there's this danger here of this self-delusion and this idea of persecution, that any criticism, sometimes they are trying to help you. They're criticizing you, and kind of, it maybe doesn't feel good, but if she had taken their advice, she and Harry would be in a much better place now. So as Harry and Meghan kind of became more and more competitive with Catherine and William, they wanted to break apart their organizations. And I think in part as well, because we'll see later, I think I kept the quote in here, but if not, I'll kind of just go over it briefly, is that Harry and Meghan wanted to create their own foundation like Will and Kate's, but Buckingham Palace was worried about how Harry and Meghan would use those finances, because there's not great oversight over a foundation. They made it a charity instead. That goes to show you that there was genuine concern very, very quickly that Harry and Meghan had the potential to misappropriate or misuse funds, basically. It says, the solution Harry and Meghan decided was to establish a separate office from the Cambridges. In an acrimonious meeting in Kensington Palace's gardens between the brothers, William could no longer hold back. Meghan's behavior, he told Harry, was unacceptable. She had never intended to give up her career and become a loyal member of the family. Her workload was light. In the last 5 months since the wedding, she had undertaken 26 engagements, and most of them were fun things like ascot and a polo match. And so again, William is like, hey, now, we're starting to pick up, and you guys need to pick up too. And she can't just do the fun things. And again, when Megxit came out, that's what Harry and Meghan said, basically. We just want to do the fun things. We don't want to do the boring things. And this is already coming out very, very quickly. And William's like, no, wait, me and Catherine have 3 young children. At this point, they're all under 5. And there's a lot of stress. I think maybe you're under 4 or something. There's a lot of stress in their lives. And they're like, hey, you guys are, and again, people can say they weren't supposed to do this or whatever, but they were hoping, Harry and Meghan would take some of the burden, but Harry and Meghan, they didn't want to do that. And then kind of we get to this Australia trip, which Harry and Meghan thought was a really crowning moment and achievement. They showed everyone that they were the best. This says, boosted by the Mulroneys, Meghan was allegedly abrasive towards 4 female staff, and even towards the local British diplomats. According to one report, Meghan allegedly threw a cup of tea into the air. Her anger was partly fueled by Harry. Every night he trawled social media, searching for snide comments on the internet. Every morning, he and Meghan turned on their phones to surf the internet. Thin-skinned, they were inflamed by the slightest criticism. Then both bombarded their staff with demands for retribution and removal of the criticism. Because they believe their truth, they're believing their own delusions. And that they couldn't accept criticism, I'm sorry, but if you are a public figure, that is part of the job. Any Hollywood royalty is criticized. Like, even Hollywood people are criticized, for their weight or for their looks or yada, yada, yada. I mean, I'm criticized on this channel. That just comes with the territory, being part of putting yourself out there on this international stage. If you can't handle it, then get out. But Harry and Meghan just want to double down and just totally blank and destroy any criticism. And part of this was fueled by their belief that they were, again, the next Diana. In that maelstrom, Harry inflamed the emotions by repeatedly telling his wife how closely she resembled Diana. Australia's huge welcome for them was comparable to Diana's tour of Australia with Charles and baby William in 1983. Tens of thousands had flocked every day to glimpse the princess. Australian Republicans and even the Prime Minister credited Diana for sabotaging their campaign to remove the Queen as head of state. In hindsight, the tour became particularly important because the media concealed the evidence that the short marriage was already troubled. Their relationship irreparably broke down after Harry's birth the following year. The more Harry drew parallels with his mother, the more Meghan became convinced of her importance to the monarchy. And I love this quote as well, explaining that Harry, again, because I went over this in my last video, Harry fundamentally did not understand really his mother and what she went through and who she really was. He believed the fantasy that the media had created, while William actually went through and actually discovered more about his mother. He went into the depths. He decided he wasn't going to just take what, the media told him. He went and asked his mother's family and friends, got the real Diana. But Harry believed the delusion. So this says, Harry, who was merely 12 years old at the time of Diana's death, could not fully understand his mother, her work, abilities, priorities, and historical significance. She was both a traditionalist and an iconoclast, a mischievous revolutionary, and a selfless loyalist to the monarchy. Because again, she realized her power came from the monarchy. He did not appreciate that his mother did not collect a court of followers. She compartmentalized her friends from the courtiers. Sycophants and celebrities were summoned only if they served her purpose. Among those chosen were journalist Andrew Morton and BBC's Panorama's Martin Bashir. Her interviews with both, she knew, were dynamite, but directed against Charles and Camilla, never against the Queen. Individual royals, Diana knew, must conform or the institution would lose its legitimacy. Diana's strength was the public's recognition of her vulnerability. As eyewitnesses to tragedy, both in her life and death, the public equated their own weaknesses to her experiences of betrayal, fear, and grief, and even to their personal suffering after the death. But the Sussexes had convinced themselves that their Australian success blessed them with Diana's magic. Never having studied British history, politics, or shown interest in biographies, Meghan could not understand that Diana had won the public's affection after years of work. Neither she nor Harry could grasp that emulating Diana required time to weave a narrative and create a brand from which influence would flow. Unlike Meghan, Diana never needed to seek money or fame. Both had come naturally. And that, I think, is huge. Meghan wanted fame. That's her sole focus in life, was being as infamous as possible. And she saw Diana, I think, as the ultimate icon of this. But Diana spent years suffering. She worked hard. She did not have an easy time doing it. And she was traditional and loyal to the monarchy. While Harry and Meghan have kind of emulated this somewhat. I mean, they always say, well, we love the Queen. We want to talk with the Queen. We don't want to talk to anybody else, but we love the Queen. But they also don't understand that the monarchy as an institution itself, they're undermining it. And that even is only the only thing that gives Harry and Meghan the platform they have is the monarchy. So if they destroy it, then what are they left with? A B-list actress and a guy who could barely graduate high school and couldn't go any farther in the military because he couldn't pass any of the tests? I mean, that's not looking good, guys. So I don't know what's going on in their minds when it comes to that. That's why I still don't get like this whole thing where they want to attack Charles and William, not thinking about the future and what that could mean for them. But again, this fantasy and Meghan's obsession with it kind of kept driving them. It says, in her misunderstanding and encouraged by Harry, Meghan conjured a fantasy that she could provide the leadership the monarchy required. Her activism would enhance the brand. To her staff, she gave the impression she believed she personified the monarchy's importance. When I read this, honestly, Meghan sounds crazy, because to me, like, if you've spent any time actually studying history, you understand the only people truly in power in the monarchy are the heirs and the ruler. That's it. Everybody else is kind of revolving in circles around that, in varying circles of influence. And depending on who's in power, that's who you kind of have to suck up to. You have to suck up to the next in line. You have to very carefully navigate this very treacherous kind of thing where you're kind of trying to keep everybody happy, but trying to do your own machinations. The idea that Harry and Meghan could change the brand of the monarchy is ridiculous, because the power always resides with the crown, which means the Queen Charles, William, and George. Harry is not a part of that equation. He's just not. And this is the same across the board in Sweden. It's the king, Crown Princess Victoria, and her daughter Estelle. In the Netherlands, it's King Willem Alexander and his firstborn daughter, Katharina Amelia. They are the future. They are the crown. You know, they are the king and queens. And so it's just this idea just reveals the level of delusion that Meghan had and her lack of understanding, which I put at the feet of Harry. Harry should have spent more time explaining to her that no, you will not be queen. No one cares. And also, I have to say this because I do a little bit of marketing. That's some of what I do. Is that Meghan is really terrible at branding. She really, really is. The TIG is a terrible brand. It's a terrible brand name. Archewell is a terrible brand name. It's clunky. You know, the TIG, I'm like, what does that mean? It's like Tigarella or whatever the wine is. And, you know, TIG, I think of Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. So I just think it's kind of, she's terrible at that. And I kind of thought for a while that Sussex Royal was actually not that bad. But when I think about it more now, I realize it's kind of kitschy and kind of lame and very influencery. And it does not have that air of regalness that they probably should have had in whatever their brand name was. And yeah, it could be clunky like the Royal Foundation and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, but the Royal Foundation, it sounds, you know, very important. And the Prince's Trust, it sounds very important rather than Sussex Royal. Look at us, we're making t-shirts and I think toothbrushes. I don't think they actually made toothbrushes, but anyways, I think of t-shirts and toothbrushes. You know, and Meghan too, one of the critical errors that Harry and Meghan made were listening to their idiotic US-based team, which knew nothing about the monarchy and turned the golden ticket into a giant turd with Harry and Meghan because they did not understand that the scrutiny you have as a royal is completely different. Ergo, the celebrity stuff does not work. It just doesn't work. So this says, naturally, her American agents and lawyers were encouraging. For years, they had struggled to land parts for her. Now they believe she could earn millions from her activism. Of course, she would need an American base and a foundation to deposit the proceeds. There was even, she was told, an American billionaires who might provide the startup scholarship. Her advisors neither understood that their strategy was incompatible with the monarchy, nor did they care. In their uncluttered scenario, Meghan would earn millions and they would reap the commission. So again, they're not actually helping Harry and Meghan, they're just lining their own pockets. And that, you know, basically leads Harry and Meghan to ruin because since they didn't fundamentally understand it, they didn't understand the pitfalls they were falling into and how they were utterly damaging Harry and Meghan's brand. So after they came back from Australia on the 1st of November, Harry and Meghan returned to London convinced they were royal rock stars, empowered to change the royal family. It was the first time, said Harry excitedly, that the family got to see how incredible she is at the job. And that brought back memories, not only his brother, but all the courtiers, Harry believed, were dismissing Meghan just as they shunned Diana. I wish that we could all learn from the past. But again, Harry didn't fundamentally understand the past. How can you learn from it if you don't understand it? And so Harry was actually repeating the mistakes of history because he didn't even understand the mistakes that had been made before, whereas William did. And again, I give mad props to William for not believing the shiny saintly image, but actually going deeper and really trying to understand his mother as a human being, because I think that helped him immensely, whereas Harry, again, disaster. And this I love this so much. American girlfriends visiting Meghan in Kensington Palace found a troubled woman cooped up in Nottingham Cottage. She complained that there was no staff to prepare meals. No one treated her as a royal. Looking miserable, she mentioned being the most trolled person in the world. People in the media were telling lies about her. It was so damaging to her mental and emotional health, one friend concluded. One cause of her difficulties was her reluctance to take on traditional royal duties. I love this. She wanted to. Okay, here's the ugly truth. Royals are not treated like they were in the 1600s. Like, duh! Like, duh! That's so easy to know. And she was sitting there going, well, there is no servant to wait on me hand and feet. Where is my servant? Honey, there is no servant. There is no servant. So again, she is causing pain for herself and Harry because she thinks that somebody is going to walk around there and, feed her macaroons, as she lounges back on the sofa or settee or whatever. That just wasn't going to happen. And Nottingham Cottage is also not that big. However, the future King and Queen of England lived there with their son, the future King of England. And so she's looking at this little cottage thinking, I want something bigger. I want what Kate has. But again, you got to understand, you are lower on the totem pole. Ergo, you don't get as big a place as the person higher on the totem pole, which would be your brother-in-law, the future King of England. But again, Meghan, I feel like, makes Americans look so bad. She really, really does. She makes us look dumb, entitled, arrogant, stupid, quite frankly, a bit, because we, and classless, tasteless, like so many things. I feel like she made us look uncultured, uninterested in learning other cultures because she wasn't uninterested in learning cultures. It was just bad. The combination of the horrors of Frogmore and the Queen's refusal to allow Meghan and Harry an independent court confirmed to Meghan that no one appreciated her. She also began to understand that the British monarchy, costing the public just £85 million a year, was neither flush with money nor an invincible luxury Rolls-Royce machine. The power and influence she assumed to have acquired from her marriage to Harry was an illusion. And I think that is a huge, huge point to make. Meghan, again, had this unrealistic expectation of the luxury that she would be living in. These castles are drafty. Like the palace, Buckingham Palace had to go several $100 million renovation, in part because these old buildings kind of start to fall apart after a while, and they're massive and they're hard to keep up with. And so Meghan had this delusion about what she was walking into, because either Harry didn't explain it to her because he was so desperate to keep her, or she just didn't even care. And again, it's dangerous to think that, she, again, thought she was marrying into the Middle East, she was marrying into Saudi royalty. No, honey, it's the British royal family. They say that, Harry walked away from $600 billion fortune or something. No, he didn't. The Queen and Charles don't have as much cash as a lot of people would think. And not to mention, they can't be flashy with the cash they have. They have to be very careful not to be seen as too flashy with the money. So it's just kind of a catch-22. It's very, challenging. And some of the other monarchies, again, are even more restrictive when it comes to this. Because with Clooney on her side, Meghan persuaded Harry that her methods were right. They should abandon the royal press officers and rely on Los Angeles publicists. In future, Harry and Meghan would distribute their own unfiltered message through social media. And again, that would lead to disaster. And again, this relying on George Clooney, because he had a couple statements he made after Diana's death. I haven't heard about them being seen with George Clooney in a mall that much. Although I will say, I think some people believe, and I could see this as true, again, because Meghan hangs out with people who are interested in fame. And although Amal is very, very accomplished, I think to a certain extent, she does fall into that camp. And so I agree that Amal is immensely accomplished, so I think that kind of negates some of her interest in this celebrity lifestyle that Meghan is interested in as well, because she's actually accomplished something on her own rather than marrying her accomplishment. She wouldn't be obviously on the world stage if she hadn't married George Clooney, but still, she was a very accomplished woman before she met him, so I give her mad props. With Meghan's blessing, other invitees, so this is to the baby shower, intended to do the same. Celine a publicist will use the event to promote her client's fashion. Jess Mulroney hoped to capitalize on her friendship to get an enhanced TV contract. Serena Williams, who funded the party, would re-advertise her brand citing Meghan's name. The guest list was Meghan's latest shot at launching her own celebrity in the States. And again, I think that Meghan can only be friends with people who are interested in kind of using each other to get ahead. That's Meghan's kind of set. Influencer style people who are desperate for the fame and luxury like she is. Those are, and some of them do have that, but some of them don't. And they're all desperate to have it. And so Meghan surrounds herself, I think, honestly, with a lot of very shallow people, because she's shallow. And you can't, interact with people with much depth when you're shallow. They can't really be your friends, because if they don't have the same shallow ambitions you do, then what are you going to do? It says, Meghan did not pretend to be modest. Having experienced the tough times, she loved extravagance. She had no intention of following the Queen's notable frugality, nor would she. Like those who financed the baby shower, she was determined to get her money's worth. And this is a thing, is that royals and even aristocrats are actually quite frugal, so they don't flaunt their cash very much. And, you know, you can walk by the Queen and some people haven't recognized the Queen because she looks just kind of like a normal person, and that's what they really tried to emulate. They're not interested in the extravagance quite as much. I mean, they like it, they appreciate it, but they also understand that you know, that what they really value, because they have all these great things given to them, is I think they value their privacy and their family life, perhaps maybe a bit more in some cases, not in all cases, but because they have such extravagance, that really I think what Catherine and William love more is privacy in their family rather than the trappings of fame. So on to say, offstage the prince felt more than ever unfulfilled. Living in Frogmore, he was struggling through another bout of darkness. Still angry with his brother for refusing to support wholeheartedly his campaign against the media or voice sympathy with his new age antics, Harry felt sidelined. Palace officials were investing new energy to prepare William to be the future king. No longer in Kensington Palace and feeling physically distanced from Buckingham Palace officials, Harry became an agent for unrest. And so I think, again, that gave Meghan a window into manipulating Harry, because Harry was just deeply unhappy. And I think Meghan made him more unhappy because she wanted stuff that he could not give her. He could not give her the extravagance that she wanted. It goes on, Meghan's ambition was to re-engage with her former followers and connect with millions of activists on Instagram. The Sussex Royal site would be her platform to respond to critics faster and independently of the palace. She would call her own shots, explained her spokeswoman. The Sussex's celebrity guaranteed attention. Choosing Instagram as their social media platform for the official website of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex was contentious. Instagram, in particular, was criticized for fueling anxiety, depression, and addiction, especially among young girls. But Meghan, again, this was her focus. This, you know, she wanted the fame and the platform. And when she was pregnant as well, I love this kind of bit about, you know, Tom Bower goes into really interesting things about how Meghan, again, was starting to monetize even her own children. She wanted to monetize her children for CBS, for Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King. The exclusivity demanded by Oprah Winfrey matched Meghan's and Harry's mood for retaliation against the royal family, the media, and the British public. To build up Meghan's profile in America, Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King had an exclusive agreement with Meghan to produce a glowing CBS TV documentary about the first year of her marriage. It would be transmitted at peak time, soon after the birth of her baby. In exchange, Meghan guaranteed that no other TV network would get access to her or the child. The strategy, kept tightly secret, was fully supported by Sunshine Sachs. The tripartite American agreement came under the headline label privacy. Harry agreed that Buckingham Palace be given no choice. CBS would be given the exclusive rights to film the Queen being introduced to baby Archie. The birth and the aftermath would signal the Sussexes' break from the palace. Obviously, that didn't end up happening, but it goes on. In mid-April, Sarah Latham, their new spokeswoman, announced that the Sussexes would keep the plans around the arrival of their baby private. Not only would the hospital be kept secret, but even the identity of the godparents would remain undisclosed. On cue, Oprah Winfrey supported the Sussexes' unprecedented decisions. Meghan, she pronounced, would start her family in a different way than what's been done for more than 1,000 years. That was true. By tradition, royal births are always cause for national celebration. And also, the publicity accompanying royal births had always been essential to establish the newborn's legitimacy. Inevitably, the Sussexes' decision reignited controversy. Some were sympathetic to the Sussexes' self-protection from the hazards of fame. Others were perplexed how privacy matched the Sussexes' agenda for modernizing and serving the people. In addition, you have to understand as well, Archie, when he was born, was being supported by the taxpayers, and so were his parents. The taxpayers, because they are supporting his life, should have the right to have some say in it, really. That they didn't, that they were blocked, is very concerning. So if you understood that the Sussexes' definition of privacy for the couple, privacy did not mean remaining secret and unseen. Rather, it meant enforcing total control over their images and the accompanying narrative. If that strategy upset the palace and tore up the royal rulebook, that was a bonus. Meghan's original plan was to have a home birth helped by her mother. For a 37-year-old, there was an element of risk in that. Once her baby was overdue, the plan was ditched. On May 5th, Meghan was driven at speed from Frogmore to the Portland hospital. a private clinic in central London. At 5:26 a.m. on 6th of May, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born. The deception started immediately. At 2 p.m., just over 8 hours after Archie was born, Buckingham Palace announced that Meghan had gone into labor. 20 minutes later, at 2:20, his birth was announced on the Sussex Instagram site. Realizing that they had been fooled, Buckingham Palace officials caught up a few minutes later with a formal announcement. So Meghan and Harry basically pulled one over on the palace by they tricked the palace into announcing that she was in labor so they can announce the birth. I mean, that's just ludicrous and just ridiculous for a royal to do that. Goes on. 2 days after Archie's birth, CBS's Gayle King was in Windsor for her first public appearance. BBC and ITV cameras were specifically excluded. And again, those are the people paying for this baby. The ludicrousness of this is insane. At King's request, Meghan timed the photo call in St. George's Hall in Windsor Castle with the start of CBS's morning show in New York. The photograph released by the palace showed the Queen, Prince Philip, Doria, and the Sussexes staring at a shawl. Neither CBS nor a single photographer present were allowed to record Archie's face. King was nevertheless delighted. Of course, she was making money off this. Her reward for securing exclusive access to Meghan in Windsor and for the TV documentary to be shown 10 days later was an enhanced annual contract fee, estimated to have doubled to $11 million. With every precedent broken, the critics of Meghan were forceful. Once again, George Clooney was Meghan's defender. People should just be a little kinder, he said. She's a young woman who's just had a baby. But she's also manipulating the system, grabbing money, being difficult to the people who are funding her lifestyle. There's a huge difference between George and Amal Clooney, who do everything themselves, and Harry and Meghan, who are living off the taxpayers at this time. Huge difference. Goes on. The turmoil continued at Archie's christening in Windsor. Meghan banned the palace's accredited photographer and confirmed that his godparents' names would remain secret. In explanation, she would tell Oprah, "The same people who have been abusing me want me to serve my child on a silver platter," which she did herself by guaranteeing Gayle King the only access. She's serving her child on a platter. So again, the hypocrisy of Harry and Meghan is just insane. Among those nevertheless identified as godparents were Mark Dyer, a former equerry, Tiggy Legg Burke, Harry's trusted nanny, and Charles Van Stronsby, an old school friend of Harry's. The media characterized Meghan's demands as a poseure's petulance. The tabloids she had hungrily sought until 2017 were now the enemy. And they were enemy again, specifically because they did not follow explicitly Harry and Meghan's planned out narrative. Because, again, if you're in Hollywood, that's probably fine, but honey, you're in the monarchy. It's a totally different ballgame here. And the thing as well is that all of Meghan's friends were also capitalizing on this connection. Capitalizing on the wedding and baby shower had transformed other unknowns into celebrities. By associating her designs with Meghan, Misha Nono had opened a pop-up fashion boutique in central London and an intimate workshop for a group sound healing using crystal bowls. Jessica Mulroney, newly dubbed by Harper's Bazaar as the fairy godmother of Canadian fashion, had finally secured a contract on ABC's Good Morning America. Flaunting her relationship with Meghan, Mulroney modeled new clothes on Instagram alongside her 3 children. Abigail Spencer, an actor from Suits, was also delighted that her friendship with Meghan had increased her Instagram following from 100,000 in 2016 to 500,000. Contrary to some expectations, her NBC show Timeless was not axed. Another beneficiary was Taryn Toomey, a fitness trainer. Meghan and Harry had urged their followers to explore Toomey's retreats in Mexico and Mystique at £3,600 for 4 nights and buy a peach moonshine necklace for £1,200. So not only was it Meghan, but it was all about her friends making money off of her as well. And of course, she supported that 1,000%. And so going on again though, because there were so many concerns about Harry and Meghan, how they're using their money, the palace denied them the opportunity to run a foundation, instead enforced them to adopt a charity. Under the law, Sussexes would be denied any privacy over the foundation's management. For Meghan, a master of control, the legal requirement of transparency was unexpected. The foundation's legal structure, she believed, was a deliberate bid to undermine her. And it was because they wanted to protect the palace and the officials from potential legal dealings and realized that Harry and Meghan would exploit it all for money. And the palace couldn't allow that. Once Meghan discovered that the Sussex Foundation could not operate in secrecy. Another reason to stay in Britain had disappeared. Money was critical to her, as Gina Nelthorpe Crown had realized. Meghan was a businesswoman first and foremost. Not a very good one, though. Everything was calculated on commercial terms. Financing her charities and her personal lifestyle were destined to be intertwined, which again is fundamentally incompatible with the monarchy. And then Harry and Meghan did something so epically disastrous and stupid, which was to pitch Meghan to Bob Iger at the Lion King premiere. So they missed a memorial service for Royal Marines to pitch Meghan as a voiceover actress. Minutes later, Harry was speaking to Jon Favreau, the film's director. If anyone needs extra voiceover work, he began, only to be interrupted by Meghan. That's why we're really here, she said. It's the pitch. Harry praised Meghan's acting abilities, which again shows how dense Harry is. Meghan's a terrible actress, which Disney found out very, very quickly. Next, Harry approached Bob Iger, Disney's chief executive, famous for the quip, "They only root for you in Hollywood when your cancer is terminal." "You know she does voiceover works," the prince asked Iger. "I did not know that," replied the executives. "You seem surprised. She's really interested." "Sure, we'd love to try," Iger said, grasping that the prince was touting for work. "That's a great idea." The Sussexes' successful pitch was only marred by their later realization that all their exchanges had been recorded. Meghan did narrate Disney's documentary Elephants Without Borders, the story of a group of elephants at risk of poachers. The reviewers would not be enthusiastic. A spectacular of schmaz, a sugary taste, and the right side of annoying were among the most favorable comments of the reviews. So again, Meghan, she pitched herself, but she's not that good again. And it was just so incredibly stupid to do that right in front of the cameras, not thinking, well, nobody's going to record us. Again, it's that arrogance that the two of them have. And this feeling that they were superior to everybody else just continued to grow when they went to South Africa. So as a result, they saw further aggravated their relationships with the royal family. Just as in Australia, the Sussexes convinced themselves that their stardom in South Africa was unappreciated by Buckingham Palace. Their loyalty was being exploited. Having broken with her family, Meghan persuaded Harry to consider doing the same. At the same time, she poured out her anger to her Los Angeles advisors about the dark forces of work. Palace officials were briefing against them. They were being held back by Charles and William. They deserved better. Back came the reassurances that global recognition and her fame and fortune were guaranteed once she returned to America. But first, she needed to set the scene for her return. The gentle illusion of the benign Sussexes did not match their hunger for revenge against the newspapers. But once again, they're delving into very dangerous territory because, again, they were not going to be the stars. They never were going to be stars. Harry's sixth in line. He knew that. And it fueled him to kind of go with Meghan. But, they were just never going to be the stars, and ergo, William and Charles always had to come first. That's just how it is. Finally, he played the Diana card. Meghan, he said, was falling victim to the same powerful forces, and his deepest fear is history repeating itself. "I've seen what happens when someone I love is commoditized, to the point where they are no longer treated as even a real person. I lost my mother, now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces," Harry said. Harry claimed the publishing excerpts from Meghan's letter to her father to the Daily Mail on Sunday had misled readers by strategically omitting select paragraphs, specific sentences, and even singular words to mask the lies they perpetrated over a year. Again, this is the danger, is that Meghan is at risk. She is the next Diana, but she wasn't, and she wrote the letter to her father, and she's not gonna be the next Diana. But this delusion fueled Harry, and I think Meghan, who allegedly wore the same perfume Diana wore on her first date to Harry, fueled this, and fueled this paranoia in him as well. It goes on, he would later assert about Diana, "My mother was chased to her death when she was in a relationship with someone who wasn't white. And now look what happened," referring to Meghan. He said, "They're not going to stop until she dies." He forgot that Diana had actually fired her bodyguards, and that the only criticism of her relationship with Dodi Fayed was that the unemployed playboy fond of drugs had ordered a drunken driver to race through the streets of Paris. Again, Harry, he's believing the media lies and narrative about Diana's death without actually understanding. Part of it was a drunk driver and the BBC convincing Diana and fueling her paranoia against the palace so that she ditched her Scotland bodyguards, or her, basically her Met protection. And that is kind of the reason why she died. Which is sad to say. The paparazzi should not have been chasing her either, and they should have helped her and said they were taking pictures. However, it could have all been avoided if certain things had not happened the way they did, and Harry's ignoring that. Gina Nelthorpe Crown, among one of those furious about the ITV interview, she made me laugh out loud. I know when nonsense is nonsense, and this was a demonstrable rubbish. Meghan was a grown-up woman when she married Harry. She gushed in my car, "We are going to change the world." She meant that she wanted to rule the world. And again, I think this is exceptionally true. And again, I always say, anybody who tells you, "Oh, I'm going to save the world," run as far as you can, because actually, honestly, I've watched a decent amount of documentaries on cult leaders, and it always seems like they as well are saying, "We're gonna save the world," and then it all goes terribly, horribly wrong. So don't believe anybody when they say that, because you can't save the world. You just can't do that. You just can't. So anybody who tells you that, they're lying. Because on Meghan's voice was loud and clear. The monarchy's fate, she thought, depended on her. Her critics were again bewildered. In the 3 years since she met Harry, Meghan had clearly not grasped that the Queen had been modernizing the 1,000-year-old monarchy since 1952. Under her direction, the family worked in unison as a team. Meghan had heard the Queen's last Christmas message. As we all look forward to the start of a new decade, it's worth remembering that it is often the small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change. Which again is incredibly true. Meghan was not going to change the monarchy. She can change it a bit, but she's also a bit player in it, and she just refused to acknowledge that. Because again, she's all about the Hollywood fame. She was all about herself the whole time. The encouragement from her Los Angeles advisors was intoxicating. The Sussex brand, Meghan was assured, offered the same global opportunities of those reaped by the Obamas. They could exploit their royal status in films, books, finance, and the digital world. By endorsing all major consumer corporations, the Sussexes would earn tens of millions of dollars. Their first step would be a major interview. Oprah Winfrey was waiting. But in reality, what has happened is that the golden goose turned into one giant turd. Together with Harry, Meghan intended to broadcast her frustration about the royals' crusty conservatism, offended her can-do culture, and the American dream. In the propaganda battle, Meghan expected Hollywood to defeat the Windsors. Her publicist has produced an artful video to show the Sussex website after the divorce was announced. So this is not the divorce between Harry and Meghan, but the divorce between them and the British monarchy. Highlighting their lives in 2019, the couple thanked their 10.8 million followers for their continued support and assured them that they would be collaborating with the Queen by pursuing a progressive agenda. At the same time, the Sussexes also composed their proposal for a public statement announcing their departure from Britain. Harry believed his family would accept their demands. And again, so this is when they're in Canada during the Christmas break and they're planning and plotting Megxit. However, again, they're not that bright at this because they decided to, again, release this without confirming any of the details with their family, so they lost a lot of their leverage by doing this. After several telephone calls with Charles, Harry was told to send his proposals in writing. Harry's message with their proposed statement broadly described the Sussexes' expectation to retain their titles, privileges, and income while living in Canada. They would keep Frogmore, enjoy round-the-clock protection, costing the British taxpayers annually about £2.5 million, and continue to receive £1.5 million in annual income from the Duchy of Cornwall. In exchange, they would occasionally return to Britain, but otherwise represent the monarchy from Canada. And again, that plan was ludicrous and shows again that it's all about the money. They wanted to keep the money, they wanted to keep the bodyguards, which Harry is still fighting about, and cost the taxpayer £100,000, I believe. I was going to say $1 million, but I think it's just $100,000. In legal fees because of this case, which I hope to goodness he loses, because if he wins, that'll be a disaster for everyone. Convinced of the palace's plans to sabotage them, the couple decided to jump the gun. Despite the imminent negotiations with the Queen, their office issued their statement on the Sussex Royal Instagram website. They would be stepping back as full-time senior royals. They plan to carve out a progressive new role within this institution and to balance our time between the United Kingdom and North America, continuing to honor our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and our patronages. This geographic balance will enable us to raise our son with an appreciation for the royal tradition into which he was born, while also providing our family with the space to focus on the next chapter, including the launch of our new charitable entity. We look forward to sharing the full details of this exciting new step in due course. So the Queen and Charles, though, they had a lot of concerns about this. And again, they never verified any of this with the palace before they released the statement. So the palace is like, you can't do that. I mean, Harry and Meghan were very specific. They still wanted the internationally protected person status, so basically their security would be covered, and they wanted X, Y, and Z, all these different things. And the palace is like, no, you can't have that. You just can't. And they didn't understand. Their concern lay in one particular phrase. So this is the Cambridges and the Queen and Charles. The Sussexes intended to work to become financially independent in Canada. Money, they knew, was at the heart of Meghan's thoughts. And it seemed that she intended to monetize the monarchy. Looking through the Sussex royal filings in Delaware, officials were aghast that the couple intended to peddle pens and clothing under the Sussex royal logo. So the monarchy, they're seeing this, they're going, oh, no, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. And so that's why they pulled, again, because they had control over the Sussex royal Instagram. If Harry and Meghan still had control over that, you bet your gosh darn it they would be using that. And if they could still use Sussex royal, you would bet your bottom dollar they would be using it. But they're basically told, no, you can't do that. Because on those waiting for Harry at Sandringham, Charles William and their advisors Edward Young, Clive Alderson, and Simon Case and Fiona, I won't even try to pronounce that, assumed that Harry and Meghan would be prepared to agree to concessions. They also believed that Meghan controlled Harry. In reality, he shared Meghan's uncompromising demands. Over lunch, Harry intended to persuade the Queen that they could serve the monarchy in a semi-detached manner from Canada. Now, I do agree that Harry was entirely on board, but I don't think, obviously this would not have been his idea. This would not have been how he would have done things. It was being led by Meghan, absolutely. She was the one really pushing it. Because Harry assured his family that he and Meghan would never use their royal titles to make money, even though that's all they've done. Finally, they agreed to express mutual platitudes. The Queen said, I recognize the challenges they have experienced as a result of the intense scrutiny over the last 2 years and support their wish for a more independent life. The Sussexes pledged to uphold the values of Her Majesty. Harry returned to Vancouver knowing that Meghan was raging about their treatment. He and Meghan shared a sense of grievance, the loss of his security and financial support, and the hostility of Charles, William, and Kate. In search for consolation, he regularly telephoned senior officials in London for support. But they, furious about Meghan's rudeness and preparing for their own redundancy, were unsympathetic. So this was their staff. They're like, well, hey, help us. And the staff's like, no, are you out of your mind? You just lost our job. We were just humiliated on the international stage. No, we're not doing this for you. So again, Harry and Meghan make one stupid mistake after one stupid mistake. Meghan was not to be defeated. She told her advisors to find a director in Los Angeles for their new charity, Archwell. Her frantic pace could not be hidden from senior officials in Buckingham Palace. In their option, the Sussexes' new jigsaw was nearly complete. The public and the media were still uncertain of the Sussexes' plans as they arrived in London for their final farewell. And this is kind of key, I think. Her script required a dramatic finale. The Sussexes needed to spin their narrative of leadership, modernity, and victimhood. Boosting her commercial value entailed constant visibility. Emphatically, her advisors advised that the optics should remind Americans that she was a duchess married to a prince. However, yes, you are a duchess married to a prince, but that title is transitory. There's no guarantee that you'll have that title forever. You are not a blood princess. Princess Madeline of Sweden will always be Princess Madeline of Sweden. She lives here in the States. She'll always be Princess Madeline because she was born Princess Madeline. Her children will be prince and princesses because they were born that way. Unfortunately for Meghan, yes, she is married to a prince and a duchess, but that doesn't necessarily equate to the power that she thinks it does, because I think that title has diminished their influence over time in the States. Even on their last day, Meghan did not want to understand that the royal family could not compromise. To the end, she could not understand why her demands were not met. I gave up my entire life for this family, she apparently told a friend in London. I was willing to do whatever it takes, but here we are. It's very sad. But again, Meghan was not willing to do whatever. She always had her options open. She always kept people in California because, again, she did not want to fully commit to this. She did not want to take the time to learn what it means to be a royal, which is not a celebrity. It's not at all. They're not at all the same thing. I did a whole video about this. They're totally and completely different. Meghan's personal regret was not the lasting memory of her in-laws as she sped from Westminster Abbey to Heathrow for her flight to Vancouver. They recalled an angry adventuress denied the power to dictate her own fate, despite all the efforts to welcome her, the wedding, the house, the staff, the foreign tours, and the limited duties. Meghan had refused to accept that the monarchy epitomized continuity. There was no place for someone to overturn 1,000 years of evolution to spearhead a progressive new role. And again, that's entirely true. It's not all about her. It's not about her wishes and desires. There's a bigger picture here, but Meghan is not good at seeing the big picture. And kind of finally we end on, I think this is a great thing. So as the COVID-19 pandemic was starting to grow and stuff, the Queen made a national address to the public. And I love how Tom Bower kind of compares the Queen's regal presence with Harry and Meghan's ridiculous post that they could tell everybody how to react to COVID. If you don't remember that, that was on Instagram. They're like, we'll give you the best information about this pandemic. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Says, and at 94, the Queen did it brilliantly, but how pathetically shallow the Queen makes Harry and Meghan look, and how empty and how trivial, how redundant they seem outside the context of the royal family. At least Meghan no longer has to remember to cross her legs when sitting. Woo-wee! That is quite the statement there. Wow. Looking at all this, you can see how everything went way off the rails, and I think was designed by Meghan to go off the rails. She wanted Hollywood. She wanted Hollywood recognition. Regardless of anything she achieved in the royal family, it wasn't as good as if it could be from Hollywood. And again, that strikes me and shows me how shallow a person Meghan is. She's so shallow because, you know, Hollywood is a kind of a terrible industry. You know, beauty is fleeting, and that's what Hollywood is. Fame is fleeting. You can be the most famous person in the entire world, but you can also be a bum on the street at some point as well. You know, it all comes down to choices, but it's also this huge thing about, oh my gosh, how like you were the granddaughter-in-law of the Queen, and that wasn't good enough for you. You had to be the star. But here's the thing for Meghan is that she was never the star on her own. She tried to for years and could not get the recognition she thought she deserved. And, you know, I just look at that and go, well, you know, she made her decisions, and that is what it is. But I think Harry and Meghan, again, you know, it's kind of fortuitous that the pandemic happened right as they were leaving, because I think that hugely just derailed their plans and also showed them for the hacks they really are. And we'll go into the more details on that in the next section. I haven't actually read it yet because I've been trying to do this in sections, and this video ended up being so much longer than I thought it would. I was trying to get it short, but again, I just wanted to show how Harry and Meghan were crafting this, pushing towards constantly Hollywood and money. Meghan was money obsessed. She wanted money. She wanted wealth. She wanted extravagance. But monarchy is about service. You are a civil servant and a tiara, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you can see the beauty in the simple things of life, you know, she would have had access potentially under Charles to incredible jewelry, potentially. Incredible, one of a kind, utterly beautiful, historic jewelry. But no, she wanted her blood diamond. She wanted the fast fashion. She wanted Hermes, Dior, Prada. You know, she hasn't worn Dolce & Gabbana, but you know, Chanel. She wanted all these designers without actually taking the time and going, well, maybe let me see this whole picture here. Let me see how I can fit in. No, it was all about me, Meghan, money, money, money. That's all it was. And how incredibly sad is that? Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. So sorry this went long. I have one more version, and it was less than 100 pages. So hopefully I won't have as many things to point out. And I probably may cut some things, so it's not quite as long, because right now it's like an hour and 15 minutes, and that's probably too long. But anyways, guys, thank you again for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.